Hari Om friends, welcome once again to Sanatan Dunya, your spiritual home. In this video, I shall be giving my commentary on the third sloka of Dakshinamurti Stotram. Dakshinamurti Stotram is a composition and spiritual work of wisdom by Adi Shankaracharya, who is one of the greatest masters of Sanatan Dharma and mainly as far as Advaita Vedanta is concerned. For those of you who have not yet listened to my commentaries on the 5 introductory prayers of this Dakshinamurti Stotram and the previous slokas of this work, I suggest you listen to them before continuing with this video. These videos are available in the video section of my channel and also in the playlist section of this channel in the playlist titled Adi Shankaracharya's Works of Vedantic Wisdom and also Dakshinamurti Stotram with commentary in English 11 parts. Before I go ahead and give my commentary on the third sloka of Dakshinamurti Stotram, I have a small request to make. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, then I suggest you do so that you may be updated about forthcoming videos uploaded to this channel. So let's move on. The third sloka of the Dakshinamurti Stotram is as follows. He whose manifestations, which are themselves nothing but the reality, appear as the objects of the world, he who imparts to those who have surrendered to him direct enlightenment through the commandment of the Vedas that thou art, and after the direct experience of which there is no more any return to the ocean of worldly existence, to him, the divine teacher Sri Dakshinamurti, is this prostration. Vedanta declares, Ekam eva advitiyam Brahma, that is, Brahman is one without a second. There is also another Vedantic Mahavakya, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, that Brahman alone is real, the world is unreal. As I had stated in the previous videos, Brahman has a power within itself called Maya, which is responsible for all the diversity of objects and creatures that we see in the creation. However, all these objects of the creation do not have any independent objective existence of their own. They are as unreal as a city seen in a mirror or a vision seen in a dream. The objects seen in a dream do not exist anywhere independently and objectively. They are a creation of our own minds. Similarly, all the objects and beings seen in the wakeful state are also likewise a creation or projection of our own minds. Brahman or the self is pure consciousness. What is born out of consciousness, that is the world, also has to be consciousness. From a human mother, only a human child can take birth. Likewise, from a lioness, only a lion cub can take birth. A human mother cannot give birth to a lion, and a lioness cannot give birth to a human being. Likewise, this entire illusory creation which is born out of consciousness is nothing but consciousness alone. There are no rocks, plants, gold, minerals, metals, fruits, vegetables, etc. All that exists in these forms are nothing but consciousness alone. From consciousness, only consciousness can emerge, not matter. So all the material forms seen and experienced in the creation are nothing but consciousness alone, appearing as those objects. But this is not the experience of we conditioned souls. We conditioned souls perceive diversity and differences among the objects of the creation. We do not perceive these diverse objects as consciousness. So how do we reconcile this difference between the lofty Vedantic theory on the one hand and our own practical experience of the world on the other? The answer is, for the time being, let us just accept the statements of the Vedas and Upanishads on the strength of authority and go about our lives balancing between work and wisdom. With time and practice of sadhana, seva, and satsang, we shall develop the ability to see all the diverse objects of the creation as being nothing apart from consciousness. Such a realization is very hard to get, but if we are relentless and perseverant in the practice of sadhana, then finally a day shall come when we realize the truth called Brahman. Thereafter, we shall experience the entire creation to be an undifferentiated mass of light. We shall experience the whole creation as a play and display of consciousness. In fact, the last sloka of this Dakshinamurti Stotram says that those who practice Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam on these 10 slokas shall eventually realize Brahman, that is, attain liberation, along with the eightfold siddhis or powers. Regularity and perseverance in sadhana are the keys to success on the spiritual path. Further, in the next part of this third sloka, Adi Shankara is saying that Sri Dakshinamurti imparts direct experience of enlightenment to those who surrender unto him. For this, Sri Dakshinamurti recommends the means of contemplation on the Mahavakya Tattvam Asi, which means you are that, or that thou art. Since the beginningless time, most of the Vedantic masters have prescribed to their disciples contemplation or some on the other Mahavakya or statement of truth as a means to attaining self-realization. Some prescribe contemplation on Aham Brahmasmi, others recommend contemplation on Tattvamasi, as the Sri Dakshinamurti here. Some others prescribe contemplation on Shivoham Shivoham, and others on the other different major Mahavakyas. What is important is that the sadhak or seeker should be regular and perseverant in the practice of his sadhana for a very long time, often lasting a few lifetimes or more, and eventually the goal shall be attained. But it is not necessary that the goal be attained in some future birth alone. It can very well be attained in this birth itself. In fact, the seeker should try his level best to attain the mukti in this birth itself. How long will it take to realize the truth if one starts regular sadhana with discipline? Well, that would depend upon the determination and regularity of the devotee, and also upon Bhagavan's and Guru's grace and blessings. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, we have the right to work, but we are not entitled to the fruits of action. We should leave the result of our sadhana or any other activity in God's hands. So, as I said, it is stated here in this verse that Sri Dakshinamurti, like many other Vedantic masters, prescribes to his disciples the method of contemplation on the Mahavakya Tattvamasi, or that thou art. Let us explore the deeper meaning of this Mahavakya Tattvamasi. In this Mahavakya, that or Tat refers to the imperishable, eternal and immortal self that we are, which is also called Brahman. This Brahman is infinite, all-pervading, omnipresent, eternal, immortal, changeless, nameless, formless, actionless, etc. In this Mahavakya, you refers to the individual self. We are not the inert body, mind or intellect. The body, mind and intellect are instruments with which we function and interact in the world. But we are the witness and the changeless substratum of our body, mind and intellect. A carpenter uses various tools for his work, such as hammer, nails, wood, spanner, etc. But he is not the tools that he uses. The carpenter is different and the tools that he uses are different from him. He is not the tools that he uses. He is the owner and user of those tools which only help him in performing his work. Similarly, the body, mind, and intellect are instruments in the hands of we souls or self or Atman. We are Atman or self alone, and the body, mind, and intellect are instruments which we use in the world of plurality. If there is some damage to our body, it does not affect the self that we are. Even death of the body does not touch us at all, since we are not the inert body which takes birth and dies. We are the eternal and immortal spirit soul within and beyond the body. So, in the Mahavakya, you are that, you refers to the individual self that we are, and that refers to the universal self or the all pervading spirit, also known as God or Paramatma. This Mahavakya is saying that the individual self that we are is the same as the universal self that we call God or Paramatma or Brahman. In other words, this Mahavakya proclaims that Atman and Brahman are one and the same. That is, there is no difference between Jivatma or soul and Paramatma or spirit. This one point is the cause of endless debate and heated arguments between the dualists and the non-dualists. The dualists or Dvaitans say that the individual self is different from the universal self, while the Advaitans or non-dualists say that the individual self is the same as the universal self. Hence, the dualists or the Dvaitans reject this Mahavakya and other Mahavakyas such as Aham Brahmasmi and take to the path of Bhakti Yoga by chanting the names of their Ishtadevatas or Sadgurus. But how can the Advaitans say that the individual self is the same as the universal self? Well, there are a few illustrations given to explain this point. The space within a pot is non-different from the total space. Space is space, no matter whether it is the space within a pot or the all-pervading space. The space within a pot is also emptiness and void, and the all-pervading space is also empty and void. Similarly, a wave of water in an ocean is also water, and the entire ocean of water is also water. Once I get a taste of a handful of water of the ocean, I shall come to know the taste of the entire ocean water. Do I need to drink the entire water of the ocean to know the taste of the ocean water? Isn't tasting a handful of water of the ocean enough to know the taste of the entire ocean water? Similarly, do I need to eat all the rasgullas available in a sweet shop to know the taste of rasgulla? If I eat only one rasgulla out of all the rasgullas in a shop, isn't it enough to end my ignorance about the taste of rasgulla? In other words, eating one rasgulla is enough for me to know the taste of all the rasgullas available in the shop. Likewise, knowing the individual self that I am is sufficient for knowing the all-pervading universal self. That is, knowledge of the individual self is knowledge of the universal self too. Just as knowledge of pot space is knowledge of the universal space too. Hence, the Mahavakya "You are that" correctly affirms that there is no difference between the individual self and the universal self. That the individual self is the universal self. Hence, you are Brahman, I am Brahman. Every Jiva is Brahman. Adi Shankara affirms, Jivo Brahmaiva na paraha. That is, the Jiva is non-different from Brahman. So Adi Shankara is saying here in this sloka that Sri Dakshinamurti provides direct enlightenment to all those who surrender unto him by giving them knowledge through the contemplation of this Mahavakya, Tattvam Asi, or you are that. Even if we continuously contemplate this Mahavakya or Aham Brahmasmi or Shivoham for a very long period of time, we shall attain self-realization. like the great masters. And once we attain self-knowledge through contemplation of these truths, we shall no longer be subject to birth and death. In other words, self-knowledge alone can liberate us from the cycle of birth and death. This is known as moksha or mukti or kevalya mukti. Finally, Adi Shankara says, to him the divine teacher Sri Dakshinamurti is this prostration. I have already commented in the previous videos about prostration and its importance. The more we prostrate with devotional bhava or feeling to our Sadgurus and Ishtadevatas, the more we shall get the fuel of inspiration and strength to pursue the spiritual path until the very end of our lives. Prostrations to Sri Krishna, to Sri Shankaracharya, to Sri Dakshinamurti, and to all the masters of Sanatan Dharma and other religions of the world. So friends, here ends my commentary on the third sloka of Dakshinamurti Stotram. I shall be coming up with commentaries on the following slokas of this work in the days to come. So stay tuned to this channel, and if you like this commentary, then hit the like button. Also, kindly subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so that you may be updated about forthcoming videos uploaded to this channel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day ahead. Hari Om.